The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum. This is Kashif Kamran, your tutor, and the purpose of conducting this session is to help you prepare for your strategic business leader exams for December 2018. Now, in this session today, I will be guiding you about some very important things which will enable you coming closer to success in December 2018 Strategic Business Leader exams. Now, first of all, when you all are preparing yourself for the SBL exams in December 2018, recently, after the conclusion of the September 18 exams for SPL, which was the first exam sitting, the examining team for SPL has released an article which I will be dealing with in the first 15 to 20 minutes of my presentation today, which will really help you getting the insights about what student did wrong in September 18 exams and what are 10 good things you can do to be successful in SPL exams. Now, when you look at this article, which is about strategic business leader, 10 things to learn from September 2018 sittings. And please ensure that you are concentrating on this article very carefully, because this will really open your mindset, preparing yourself for December 2018 examination. Now, the examining team is saying this article covers some journal issues that were seen across September answers and tips for improving your chance of passing the strategic business leader exam. So let's see what the 10 things are which the examining team wants you to adopt appearing for December 2018 examination. The first thing, knowledge is irrelevant unless it is applied to the requirement. Now, this is very fundamental, right? This is very fundamental not just for the SBL exam. This is very fundamental for any strategic professional exam, that it is the application of the knowledge, not the knowledge itself, which will enable you to pass. So if you have plenty of knowledge, you have done a good book reading, and you have done the readings of the articles, and you have plenty of knowledge in your mind, but that is irrelevant unless and until you apply the knowledge. And how would you apply the knowledge? To apply the knowledge, you need to see the context of the case. You need to see the specific points in the case. So this is a very important point, the point number one. And the point number one says, when we're looking for tips to pass the SBL exams, the number one tip is the application of the knowledge. And I just want to shed some light on this, because I personally believe this is the most important thing when it comes to the SPL exams. Now, when you look at the application of knowledge, you have to be very careful that you must be having a lot of knowledge. You all must have read the articles which was recommended to you during the conduct of the syllabus. You must have read the textbook, which was an essential part of the syllabus. Now, having a lot of knowledge in your mindset, and you go to the exam hall. Now, you need to understand that in the exam hall, you have a case study, which is a 100 marks case study, and which is an integrated case study, having several requirements. Now, when you look at that 100 marks case study, you need to see the requirements of the case study. You need to see what has the examining team asked you. What have they asked you? Which syllabus area have they asked you? Have they asked you something about non-executive directors? Have they asked you something about the weaknesses in the corporate governance structure? Or have they asked you something about the failures in the internal control systems? Or have they asked you about a business case for having an internal audit department? Or have they asked you something about ecological footprints? Or have they asked you something about risk management? Whatever. Now, whatever they have asked you is the requirement of the question, which you have to read very carefully. Now, once you know the requirements of the question and you have the knowledge in your mind, now if the question is asking you critically, if the question is asking you something about non-executive directors, now you have a lot of knowledge about non-executive directors. You know who they are. You know the best practices of corporate governance about NEDs. You know about the 4 roles of non-executive directors: the people, performance, risk. So when you have a lot of knowledge about NEDs and the question is asking you something about non-executive directors, you have to see the context of the case. You have to see what specific information has been given in case about NEDs. And that is how you will apply the knowledge. You cannot just go into the exam hall saying, okay, I know the 4 roles of the non-executive directors. The 4 roles of the non-executive directors is about people, risk, performance, strategy. And the moment the question comes on NEDs, I'll put the 4 headings: people, risk, performance, strategy. You cannot make the answer that way, because in the context of the case, there will be specific information about the non-executive directors, and you have to utilize that information. You have to utilize the information presented to make your answer. Yes, you will be needing knowledge. You need to blend the knowledge with the context of the case. You need to blend your knowledge. You need to blend your knowledge with the context of the case. So you need to contextualize. And that contextualization is very important. So you need to do the contextualizations. You need to do adapt. You need to be adaptive. Because if you're not adaptive, you're not doing the contextualization. You're not doing the application of the knowledge. Yes, I should know the 4 roles of the NEDs, no doubt about that. But I need to see the information about the NEDs in the case study to contextualize the 4 roles, to adapt the 4 roles, rather than writing them straightforward as was in the article, or as was in the book, or as was in the lecture. That would be very wrong, right? So you need to blend your knowledge. You need to blend your knowledge. The focus here is on blending the knowledge. The focus here is on contextualization of the knowledge. The focus here is on the adaptation of the knowledge. So I hope you're getting the message clear here. It is not the knowledge, it is the application of knowledge, which will enable you to pass the strategic business leader exam. And I just took NEDs as an example to demonstrate that yes, there will be information about everything in the case study. If the question is on corporate governance, there will be information about corporate governance. If the question is on the risk management, there will be information about risk management. If the question is about something about Gray Owen Adam, there will be information about Gray Owen Adam. So you need to contextualize things rather than just knowing the 7 stances of Gray Owen Adam and producing the 7 stances. It's more about picking the right stance. It's more about telling the examiner why you think the company is a social ecologist, or why you believe the company is a deep ecologist. Your justifications in the context of the case will be really, really important to make you pass. So that's the first thing, right? The application of knowledge. So blend your knowledge, contextualize, be adaptive, because that's the first success factor of this strategic business leader exam. Don't take any hypothetical assumptions. The case is there. Be closer to the case, right? Be closer to the case. Be closer to the case. Don't take hypothetical assumptions. Don't take hypothetical assumptions. Don't take wild assumptions. A lot of times students do so. A lot of times student takes far stretched assumptions, which takes them far away from the case study. Don't do that. Be closer to the case. So that's the number one tip to pass the SBL exam. The number two tip, which the examining team is telling us in the article, keep the requirement in mind when reading the exhibits. Very obvious. You cannot start to read the case or the exhibits of the case without knowing the requirements. So if you know the requirement, you know what you need to do, then you can link the requirement with the exhibits. So the examining team is telling us, read the requirements before reading the exhibits. So read the requirements before reading the exhibits, which is very true, obviously, because you need to connect what is required with the information presented in the exhibits. And please remember, a lot of students have a fear factor about exhibits. The exhibits are making your life easier because every exhibit covers a unique perspective. One exhibit can be on the financial information of the company, for example. The other exhibit can be on the weaknesses in the corporate governance structure. The third exhibit could be on the big data. The fourth exhibit can be on risk management. So every exhibit will cover unique set of information. And if you know the requirements, you can attack the right exhibit. You can go to the right exhibit and you can drill down the right exhibit. So you need to connect what is required with the exhibits. So you need to connect what is required with the exhibits. So if you can do that, that's very appropriate. And remember one thing, each exhibit covers unique set of information. So you need to know which exhibit I should go in. Which exhibit will give me that information which I need to connect with. So each exhibit will cover a unique set of information. So you should be finding the proper exhibit. And when the question starts, when the question starts in, at the start of the question, this is just an example from a sample paper. At the start of the question, the examiner will give you the breakdown. At the start of the question, the examiner will give you the breakdown of the exhibits. See right here. The examiner is giving you the breakdown of the exhibit. What is in exhibit 1? What is in exhibit 2? What is in exhibit 3? What is in exhibit 4? What is in exhibit 5? And what is in exhibit 6? The requirements are after. So once you know what is in each exhibit and you're reading the requirements, automatically your mind will alert you that for this requirement I should go to exhibit number 1. For this requirement I should go to the exhibit number 4. For this requirement I should go to the exhibit number 6. So when you are reading the requirements and you know what is given in each exhibit, so it is easier to connect the exhibit with the requirement, and the exhibit will really make reading the case study very productive for you. So that's the second success point tip which the SBL examining team is giving you. Number 3, a model may not be the best structure for an answer, because the examining team thought that in the September 18 exam, a lot of times students used a lot of models. Some of the models are part of the visual aids, and you have been guided about that in the sessions. whether they were the physical classes or the online classes. A model may not be the best structure of the answer. Try to understand what is the examiner trying to tell you. A model may not be the best structure of an answer. Why? A model may not be the best structure of the answer because the examining team thought the students used a lot of models in September exams and which were a bit unnecessary, firstly. And secondly, they thought that when you use a model, the model limits the information because you then look within the boundary of the model. If you are conducting a SWOT model, then you will be looking just for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat. Or if you're conducting a BCG matrix, you will be looking for a cash cow, star, question mark. Or if you're conducting a Mendeley matrix, you will be looking for a key player, a minimal effort, a keep satisfied, a keep informed. So if you're conducting a pestle model, then you'll be looking for the political, economic, social, technological. You start coming under the boundaries of the model. So when you use model, the model limits the information within the boundary of the model. But that does not mean you are not using models. The examiner is saying the student used unnecessary models, and models may not be the best structure of the answer. But where the examiner is specifically asking for a model, then what will you do? I have told you that in my physical classes and the online classes that a lot of time there are visual aids which have to be used. A lot of time the requirement of the question requirement would be like this: using the heat map, comma, do something. Now what will you do? Now the examiner is saying use the heat map. Now you have to use the heat map. You have to use the likelihood and the impact, and you have to construct the heat map. You have to visualize the heat map, and visualizing the heat map, you will plot the risk from the case study. Now the examiner is saying you have to use it. Now obviously you have to. Or what if the requirement comes, which has been in the sample paper, which says using the power interest matrix, using the power interest matrix, comma, and the question continues. Now the examiner is purposely asking you that you have to use the Mendeley matrix. But where the requirement is not specifically asking for a model, examiner is saying don't use it because it may not be the best answer. But if you think that this requirement can be best handled with a model, and there is a definite model, and I can believe that the requirement of the question can be best solved looking at a SWOT model, looking at a Porter model, then do it. But you cannot bring models in every part, in every requirement. You cannot just flood your answer with models. So examiner is saying a lot of time the student used them unnecessarily in the last exam sitting. So he's saying the model may not be the best answer because if you use models, then you are within the boundaries of the model. And if you are within the boundaries of the model, you might not be using the other information given in the case study because you will be just filling the model and you will be ignoring information which will not fill in the model. So, but where the question specifically asks you using the heat map, using the power interest matrix, then you have to use the model. Just for example, if I take you back to the specimen exam and I show you something, see the first requirement. The first requirement says an analysis of the industry and the market which DCS company is competing in using an appropriate model. Now see, the examiner himself is asking you use an appropriate model. So in this answer, you will use it. But you cannot use it when it's not been asked for. So in this 15 marks requirement, the examiner is saying an analysis of the industry and an analysis of the market which DCS company is competing in using an appropriate model, like a Porter 5 forces. So use the appropriate model. See this requirement. Draft a section of a report to identify and briefly discuss the three main risks which DCS company currently faces and plot them on a heat map. And recommend appropriate strategy using an appropriate risk management framework. Now see, the examiner is saying you have to use the heat map. Now you cannot say, I got a tip from the September 18 exams, the model should not be used. So where the examiner is asking you to use them, use them. And then the examiner says, appropriate strategies to manage risk using an appropriate risk management framework. Now you know the risk management framework for managing the risk is basically the TARA model. So you have to bring in the transfer acceptance reduction over here. So you have to use the TARA model, because the examiner is saying using an appropriate risk management framework. So see, in a certain question, the examiner himself asks you, use a framework, use a model, then you have to. But unnecessarily, please don't use them unnecessarily. So I hope you're getting my point, right? So that simply means if the requirement specifically ask for using a model, or the model has been given by the examiner, use it. Else refrain from using unnecessary models. Right? So that's the bottom line the examiner is trying to say in the learnings from the September 18 exams. Okay, let's go back to the article. Point number 4, remember the recipient. Because every time when you are answering a question, there is a recipient. Sometime you're writing for the board of directors, sometime you're writing for the shareholder. So in each and every context, there is a recipient in front of you to whom you're writing. So that's very important. So the tone will come from there. Remember the recipient, because that remember the recipient will help you. Remember the recipient, because if you remember the recipient, that will help you with the tone of the answer. To whom you're writing? Are you writing to the shareholders? Are you writing to the directors? Are you writing to the audit committee? To whom you are writing? Are you writing to the middle management? Are you writing to the strategic management? Are you writing to one of the very important stakeholders, like the shareholder, like the institutional investor? So it will help you with the tone of the answer. So please remember who is the recipient. And every requirement will tell you who you are and to whom you are writing. So that's a very basic fundamental of the SPL exams. It will say you are someone and you're writing to someone. So who you are and to whom you are writing will really help you in playing a role, and that role will really help you bring out the tone. So you have to do the role play, because the role play will help you with the proper tone of the answer. So Please be sure of that, right? Every question will say, you are Mr. A non-executive director, or you are Mr. A, an expert, or you are Mr. A consultant, and you are writing something to Mr. Z, who is someone. So each question has to start that way. So remember the recipient, right? That's the fourth key point. Then the fifth one, very, very important, very, very important. Avoid long paragraphs. And this is something which I keep telling to my students because I am personally engaged with theoretical papers. I'm engaged with SPL, I'm engaged with the Advanced Audit and Assurance exam. And that's the message I keep giving to the students, that when I check the assignments of the students, they just keep writing and writing and writing and writing. They don't break something. They don't break where the point has been ended. The examining team is saying avoid a long paragraph. Break your points. Break your points into small paras and end your para where one point raised by you ends, and each para should not be more should ideally be like 2 to 3 lines, or should ideally be like 3 to 4 lines. See, that's written here. Any paragraph that has more than 4 good sentences is likely to be too long. Any paragraph that has more than 4 good sentences is likely to be too long. So any paragraph that has more than 4 good sentences is likely to be long, even if it covers a point that has been developed enough to earn 2 marks. So examiner is not encouraging a very long paragraph. He's saying even if it covers a point that has been developed enough for 2 marks, he's not liking that. He's saying, no, keep your paras short. Keep your paras short. So he's saying many September answers contained long paragraphs without headers, splitting up answers were thus not professionally presented. How many times I keep telling my students of Advanced Audit and Assurance and SPL, headings and a paragraph, headings and a paragraph. You're appearing for a theoretical paper. And in a theoretical paper, presentation counts. Presentation do matter. Presentation really makes an impression, because if you're not presenting your theoretical answer, it's very difficult for the assessor or the assessing team to read your answers. Whenever I check your assignments, it's so difficult reading between the lines, reading between the paragraphs, and going within those congested paragraphs with bad handwritings and just extracting what you're trying to say is so challenging. So in the next point 6, the examiner is saying head paragraphs clearly. Head paragraphs clearly. So both things matters under presentation, right? So first the examiner is saying, avoid long paragraphs. So break your points into small paragraphs, end your para where one point end. Each para should ideally be like 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 lines. Examiner is not encouraging above 4. So probably the better definition is ideally each paragraph should be 2 to 3 lines max. He's not liking the 4-line paragraph. Then another important thing he's raising is headings. He's saying make use of headings to raise your points. Break each point with headings. So it's about a better presentation, right? A better presentation of the answer. And how would you go about a better presentation of the answer? Is equal to short paras, headings, plus a short para. That is a good presentation. for any theoretical paper. So please ensure that you are going with better presentations as the examiner is highlighting, and do remember that presentation plays a crucial part in a theoretical paper. Illegible handwritings, bad presentations do really matter a lot in a theoretical paper. Okay, let's see the number 7. Say why as well as what. So important again for any theoretical paper. Say why as well as what. Because with these two, you can survive your theoretical paper. Say why and what. Such an important thing. Such an important thing. Now, in every theoretical paper, if you are writing a paragraph which does not have a why are you writing it? You should not have written it then. Because if you are writing a para which does not have a why and what, I normally ask student, when you write something, read it yourself. Because when you write something and you read it yourself, you will probably think, oh, I forgot to write the why. Oh, I forgot to write the what. Because when I am reading your assignments, I am reading your assignments to find the ambiguity. Because if there is no why and there is no what, then what are you writing? Then why are you writing? Because if you want to get 1 mark or 2 marks per point, then there has to be a why. There has to be a what. Otherwise, you're just writing something which is ambiguous. So your para raising 1 point should contain a why or a what. Sometime it will be why, sometime it will be what. If you are saying this is a weakness, why it is a weakness. So a lot of time the why matters, and a lot of time the why is more powerful. Because if you're saying this is a risk, this risk has a high probability, then why? This risk has a low probability, why? This risk has a high impact, why? The non-executive director is not playing a proper role, why? There are insufficient numbers of NEDs, why? Or there are insufficient numbers of NEDs, what is the corporate governance requirement? There is not an audit committee. What is the corporate governance requirement for audit committee? There is no internal audit department. What is the requirement of the corporate governance with regards to internal audit department? So your para raising 1 point should contain a why or a what, because without that, you're writing ambiguous. Remember, ambiguous answer will lead to your failure. An ambiguous answer will lead to your failure. Specific. How many times I've used that in my classes? Contextualize, specific, case specific, adaptive, adapt yourself. You need to write the why, you need to write the what. If you are not writing that, your survival in the exam is very difficult. So why and what, make that as a rule of thumb. Remember, an ambiguous answer will lead to your failure. Okay, let's take the final 3. What's different is what's important. What's different is what's important. Such an important point. What's different is what important. Uniqueness. Different from others. I go to the exam hall and a question comes on advantages of integrated reporting. And I start writing an answer on advantages of integrated reporting, which you were taught in the class or which you learned from a book. And you start saying there are many advantages of integrated reporting. Number one, it enhances the confidence of shareholder. Every other student sitting in the exam hall must have written that. Every student must have written enhance the confidence of shareholder, enhance the confidence of shareholder, boost the reputation of the company, boost the image of the company, boost the goodwill of the company. Unique, different from others. Try prioritizing the key points first rather than writing journal points at the first go in your answer. It will boost the confidence of shareholder. You can shift that point down. It will enhance the goodwill down. Try to find something from a case study. Uniqueness, different from others. So what's different is what's important. So is your answer really impressive? Is your answer really different from others? Does it contains unique points raised by not many students? Obviously in the exam hall you don't know what's the student sitting on your left or right or in front or back is writing, but at least you know that every student when asked for something have some very common things in the mindset, because all of the students sitting in the exam hall have come after reading the books. So uniqueness will come from where? From the case study, right? How you develop your point, because every student will develop a point differently. And your sense of development is very important. So try focusing on uniqueness. Try focusing on prioritizing the key points first, because not many students will do that, even that is taught to them. Not many students will even read this article of the examining team and will go to the exam hall. Not many students will note these problems. Not many students will know that the examiner has given 10 things. And they will do the same blunder in the December exams. Okay, then number 9th. FM for the figures. FM for the figures. You have financial analysis as part of SPL, right? So FM for figures. FM for figures. FM for figures. Financial management. Financial management. Be good at. Be good at analysis. Good at analysis. Good at financial analysis. Good at ratio analysis. Good at analyzing the financial information. Good at the sensitivity analysis. So you have a syllabus area, right, which deals with analysis, and there is a skill which asks for using the skill of analysis, the analysis skill. So when the examiner is focusing on analysis, you should be good on your financial management. You should be good on numbers, relating the numbers, looking at the trends in number, looking at the numbers very carefully. So you should be very careful in looking into numbers, and you should be very analytical. The analytical skill, right, is very important. So you need to demonstrate that analytical skill. So FM for figures, right? So you have to be good at financial analysis, as simple as that. And the last 10th, skills not being rewarded can be valuable. Skills not being rewarded can be valuable. Skills not being rewarded can be valuable. Interesting. Let's go to the specimen exam. In the question number 1, the examiner says you need to demonstrate the evaluation skill, right? In the question number 2, the examiner is saying you need to demonstrate the skepticism skill. In the question number 3, the examiner says you need to demonstrate the communication skill. And over here, the examiner is saying skills not being rewarded can be valuable. So that means if the question is asking for one skill, and with that one skill, you also portray another skill, will also be valuable. If the question is asking for a skepticism skill, and you also apply the evaluation skill, that's good. If the question is asking for an evaluation skill, and you apply the commercial acumen as well, that's very good. Or if the question is asking for a commercial acumen skill and you apply analysis skill, that's very good. But the skill being asked for, that is to be applied, right? The skill being asked for is a must. But if you use another skill beside the must, it will still be valuable, or it will still be rewarded. It will still be rewarded. It will still be valuable and will be rewarded. And that's exactly what the examiner has written in the article, right? If I can read that for you, it says very carefully, although you must clearly demonstrate the professional skill being rewarded for the question part, using other professional skills can help you gain marks. So the skill being asked for, that is must. But see the examining team is saying using other professional skills can also help you gain marks. So the examiner is saying using other professional skills can help you gain marks. Thus, in question 1B, demonstrate commercial acumen, candidates needed to use skepticism to ask questions about the objectives set by the government. Were they realistic? Were they compatible? Could what the company did make any difference to whether they have been achieved? So see, the examiner is saying in the September exams, even though the question 1B was asking for commercial acumen, but if the student would have used the skepticism skill, would even have been valuable. So the skill given is a must, right? The skill given is a must, but if you can demonstrate an extra skill, that's good as well. So examiner is saying you will be rewarded for that. So I hope you're clear with that, right? The skill being asked for is a must. You cannot say, okay, let's skip that and let's do my own skill. But examiner is saying if you use another skill beside the must, it is valuable. It is valuable. So examiner is giving you a weightage for that. So see the 10 skills. I hope you will go through them and you will ensure that when you're practicing a specimen exam back at home, you are. One last thing, which beside the tips to pass the SPL exam, I want to focus on is something different. Now, when you look at a case for 100 marks and a case having 100 marks, and you start reading the case, number one, the case has many exhibits. I just mentioned that. And each exhibit contains a unique information. So be very specific which exhibit to attack for which requirement. Number two, read the requirements carefully to see number one, who you are. Number two, to whom, who is the recipient, Number three, what you have to do. Example, explain weaknesses in the corporate governance structure of the company. Or example, explain the stakeholders using the power interest matrix. What you have to do, who you are, who is the recipient, what you have to do when you're reading the requirement. And the last, not the last, the second last, which format to use. Should I be writing a letter? Should I be writing a memo? Should I be writing a presentation slides? Should I be writing a section of the report, etc.? Or should I be writing the briefing notes, etc.? So which format to use? And the last thing, which skill to apply. Should I apply commercial acumen? Should I apply skepticism? Should I apply communication? Should I apply analysis? Or should I apply skepticism? The 5 skills. And you just got the examiner verdict on that, right? So if you even apply an extra skill, will be valuable. Now, each requirement when you're reading has 5 things. Who you are, who is the recipient, what you have to do, which format to use, which skills to apply. So now can you understand how important is to read the requirement carefully? Who you are, who is the recipient, what you have to do, what format to use, and which skill to apply. Now, if you just quickly go over the requirement, what will happen? So read the requirements carefully, right? Then connect the requirements with the exhibits. and identify key points, underline key points, scribble on the question paper where you identify the key points to make key points to link with what you have to do. So connect, scribble. Now that's the reading and planning time. That's the reading and planning time. There are many exhibits. Read what you have to do, and then connect the requirements with the exhibit, underline the key points, scribble on the question paper where you identify the key points to link what with what you have to do. And how much reading and planning time you have for all this. An ideal suggestion, a reading and planning time is 1 hour, 60 minutes. You have 100 marks case study where there are many exhibits. For each requirement, there are 5 things. You need to connect the requirements with the exhibits, connect the requirements with exhibit, underline the key points, scribble on the question paper, make a rough sketch of the answer. And how much time you have for that is 1 hour. So that means once the 1 hour ends, then you have 3 hours to write. So you have the writing time, which is ideally 3 hours. And this 3 hours of the time you have is for writing. And how many marks you have? You have 100 marks to score. So you have 3 hours, that's 180 minutes. So 180 minutes is what you have. And you have how many technical marks? 180 minutes. And you have 80 technical marks, because the skills marks will not take time, because you are writing what you have to do, basically, number 3. But when you are writing, the way you want to write is natural part. The skills you have to apply is the natural part. The skills and the format is not taking any extra time. So basically you're writing the content, but you're writing the content in the way the examiner wants you to write, and you need to use the skills in that. So you will be rewarded for skills, you will be rewarded for the format. So you have 80 technical marks. So technically that means it's like it's probably like you have 180 minutes and you have 80 technical marks to gain. So that's like 2 minutes and 25 seconds per mark, 2.25 minutes per mark, ideally. So that's how you should be going about it. Now, please remember, if you want to be good on the skills, if you want to be good on all these 5 skills, I would recommend you one thing, and it is highly, highly recommended. It is highly recommended. Do it as early as possible. What is that? That is EPSM, Ethical Professional Skill Module. Do it, because this module will help you to be good at the ethical part, which is part of the syllabus, which is basically the part of professional, which is basically the part which covers the public interest and the accountants and the accountant public interest and the accountant code of ethics. And the more important thing, it will help you with the skills required to pass the paper. Where will you learn the skills? You cannot learn the skills, you have to apply the skills. So the EPSM will engage you in case studies, and you will apply those skills before you apply them in the actual exams. So I would prefer that all of you should do the ethical professional skills module to be good at the ethical part, which is part of the syllabus. But the more important thing, the skills required to pass the paper will be learned through the EPSM. And in the last exam, September 18, the examining team is very clear that students who has attempted EPSM before the SBL exams had the students who have attempted the EPSM before the SBL exams had an edge over the students who had not done so. And you want to see the edge? You want to see that edge? See this edge. When you look at your syllabus in front of your screen, your syllabus includes the red: communication, commercial acumen, analysis, skepticism, evaluation. Where will you learn these skills from? Where will you think about applying these skills? The source of this is the ethical professional skill module. And see this? Students who sat and completed the module prior to sitting their SBL September 18 exams achieved a 73% pass rate in the exam. The overall pass rate was 46, that is the average global pass rate. But the student who gave EPSM and sat in the SBL, 73% of those students passed. So you really want to do it now? Would you really do it? You should do it. You should do it. You still have an ideal 1 month. Plan to do it in the next 1 week. Plan to do it in the next 1 week before the mock assessment starts. And before the mock assessments, start to do it. Start to do it. I'm highly recommending this. So in the ethical professional skill module, you basically have 7 units, and you have to go through these 7 units in front of your screen. The unit number 1 in the module is about ethics and professionalism. The unit number 2 is about personal effectiveness. The unit 3 is about innovation and skepticism. The unit 4 is about commercial awareness. The unit 5 is about leadership and team working. That's part of your syllabus. Unit 6 is about communication, and unit 7 is the summative assessment. The unit in this unit, everything will be summed up, which you have learned across the 6 units. So please do this ethical professional skill module, which is highly recommended by the ACCA if you're appearing for the exams in December. Right, and this is the handout which I will be sharing with all of you. This is such an important handout on how to approach the strategic business leader exams in terms of your time management, which I just demonstrated you, that how would you be breaking your time of 240 minutes. See the ideal time, if you can see on the left side of the screen, you can see 40 to 60 minutes is the time you should be spending on reading and planning, and the remaining time in the blue you should be spending in writing. And how you should be going about effective reading and planning, I demonstrated all that with you in the session today. And how would you be completing your time zone of writing? So I sum up that in my session today. So I hope the session today was productive, and the session today would help you in preparing yourself for the exams in December. You still have a time. Plan to do the EPSM in the next 3 to 4 working days. The confidence of EPSM, if you do it properly and you properly spend time, there is an option of save and exit in EPSM, because it will take something like 16 hours, 16 to 18 hours if you do it properly. And you have to do it properly because you're preparing for the exams in December. There is no passing and failing of EPSM, right? It is just a module which will develop your ethical and professional skills. But invest the time. Suppose 16 hours, divide 16 hours over a week, and ideally spend like 2 hours a day. And wherever you get exhausted, there is an option, save and exit. Save and exit and exit. The next day you will start from the point where you left and continue. Then when you are exhausted, save and exit. So do that first. I would suggest first ensure that you have read the books and you've read the articles and you have gone over the contents. Number 2, now once you know I have the knowledge, I know everything, then sit down and do the EPSM. Now once you've done the EPSM, now start doing the practice. So let's make an ideal time zone for all of you. Today is the 8th of November. Okay, today is the 8th of November, and if you're making a plan for December exams, that should be the plan. I would suggest from 8th to 14th November, plan the EPSM. And from the 14th of November to like the 25th of November, do your practice. Practice the specimen exams. Practice the actual exam, which came in September 18. By incorporating all what has been discussed with you today. And then from 26th onwards, just revise the key areas again, because if you have practiced like 3 specimen exams and 1 actual exams, that's quite sufficient to get the rigor of the exam. So if you just do those 3 specimen exams, 3 specimen plus 1 actual exam, it will really give you the exam rigor. It will really give you the exam rigor. And once you get the exam rigor, your confidence is boosted. And from 26th onward, you can revise the key areas again. It will be flexible, depends upon student to student, vary from student to student. It's up to you. And if you have not yet read the book, you have not yet read the content. I hope all of you have read the content of the syllabus. You've gone over the areas of the syllabus, my areas of syllabus like leadership, governance, internal controls, risk management, and the syllabus area which was taught by Mr. Rajaz. You've gone over the syllabus, then you plan your EPSM in the 8th to 14th bracket. If you have not done the syllabus, then first do the syllabus, then plan the EPSM, and then go down the order. Right, I have already shared an article with you, which is on the communication skills, where you have the formats, I hope all of you have read that article, because that article was extremely important, because that will really tell you how you would be going about this. This article was shared with each and every one of you, the importance of effective communication on even for the online classes and for the classes at TSA. So you should know how to write the formats, and this article gives you all the formats: letter, emails, memos, reports, presentation slides, everything you need to know about the formats. So just a 9-page article, leave the title page, leave the ending page. Just a 7-page article, how much time will that take? A 7-page article, if you take down your register and keep this article and just keep practicing these formats, will hardly take 2 to 3 days of practice. And you will be so good on these formats. So for the formats, you can see this article. And for the skills, I would prefer do the EPSM. So skills is EPSM. The style to present your answer is the article. And rest, the do's and don'ts from the examining team, I have just mentioned them to you in my lecture today. I hope you had an effective understanding, and I hope I have justified my purpose of calling this lecture today, and which will really help you boosting your confidence for preparing for December 2018 exams. It's time to sign off. It's time to say you goodbye and Allah Hafiz. Have a nice day. And if you have any queries and questions relating to the session today, you're most welcome to raise them on the WhatsApp group. And I will be looking forward for your feedback once you listen to this session effectively. Best of luck for your exams. Goodbye. Allah Hafiz.